Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another installment of Coffee Chats. I am joined with the by the incredible Zara Miller. We love having her not only as a guest but also as a guest host. Zara, is there anything in particular you'd like to say to the beautiful people in our audience today?
I love co-hosting with you. Honestly, highlights of my year. So thank you for letting me temporarily fill for Mackenzie.
Oh, absolutely. As much as we dearly miss Mackenzie, she is off globe trotting in Europe and all that jazz. We love having our guest hosts. We had Riley for our previous coffee chat, and now we have, of course, the incredible and iconic Zara Miller. So, this coffee chat, we have the absolute privilege of interviewing Jim Woods, and he wrote this very, very insightful article about what separates New York Times best-selling writers from other writers out there, particularly in how they own their writing process and their writing identity. I'm actually going to drop the link to this article inside of the comments so that you guys can peruse it on your own time. It is a very, very helpful and worthwhile resource.
And
So,
Jim is an incredible creator, let me just add.
so without further ado, dramatic drum roll, please. Da-da-da-da. Hi, Jim.
Hello!
How are you?
Doing well, and you?
I'm great. I can't believe, we're rolling on here. Fall is here, getting into the pumpkin mode, the pumpkin coffee and the pumpkin muffins and all of that. So
Yes.
it feels like, it feels like a good time to write, it's cooling down and you can, hunker down inside versus, feeling you have to be outside. So
Oh my god, do not expose our love of pumpkin spice lattes. That's so
I
basic.
feel
People cannot, we are respected writers here. Do
No.
not expose us like that.
full
I feel
disclosure, I was eating a pumpkin muffin before climbing up. I was like, I gotta brush my teeth and make sure y'all don't catch the pumpkin muffin I was devouring before climbing.
Oh, so it's not basic anymore. We were in style back again.
no, it's always been in style, Zara. It's always been in style. No,
Sure.
I feel personally called out, and I love the fall, especially considering this is the time of year a lot of people write. Preptober is about to be a thing. NaNoWriMo is about to be a
Sure
thing. So
is.
I 1,000% concur with everything you said, Jim. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience about who you are by way of introduction?
I'm a writer. I'm a novelist. I love helping other writers get their books out into the world. I've been doing this seriously, like as a pro now for 8 years, which feels longer than that in some ways. And it's just a pleasure to be here. I'm so thrilled to talk to fellow writers. This is like, when you're talking to other writers, it's like you can go so much deeper and have so much better conversations. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
No, we're so excited to have you here. We love talking to fellow writers as well. It's part of the reason why that we love the industry that we're in. And so to get things officially started with our interview,
No, she's going British again.
what types of questions, in the vein of having conversations with fellow writers, what types of questions should writers ask themselves to sort of evaluate their approaches as they're writing? Because in your article, you talk about how it's better to not veer away from something that's working, but how can you even acknowledge that it's working?
Right. Wonderful question. And I think we've all been there. Do you remember when you first started writing seriously and you're kind of like, what the heck am I doing? And I would say you got to go back to the beginning. And even if you're just like starting out today and you're like, ooh, I want to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer. You kind of have to go back to school and think, okay, what approaches really worked when I was finishing projects? Maybe you like to chunk your work, or block your time. And it's like, hey, I'm going to do a deep dive and cram before the test. Maybe that's your thing. Most people, it's kind of like, hey, a little more, fairly measured and a little more structured than that. But maybe that's your thing. Maybe you go all in. So maybe NaNoWriMo is going to be the ultimate time for you to go crazy. And you know what I'm saying? And even if you're not writing a novel, I use NaNoWriMo all the time just to take momentum. Honestly, I really do. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm going in with a project I'm already working on. I'm like, I just want a little extra support as I'm doing this. Let's all put our arms together and work on something. Maybe you are just not sure. Maybe you seriously like, dude, I don't remember school. I don't remember. I wasn't a good student. I didn't finish anything, right? And I'm not picking on you because I think that says nothing about your intelligence. It doesn't mean you can't be a great writer. It just means, okay, it's time to experiment. It's
I
time
mean,
to
Einstein was a
play.
terrible student, wasn't he? He had like
Oh yeah.
got
Oh,
like
I mean,
an
there's
F in school for.
I mean, there's so many examples of amazing artists that, they get bored. They're like, I don't want to do all these things. I want to do that one thing. As a novelist, like Tarantino is a huge influence. He never graduated. I think he made it through like 7th grade.
Yeah,
Never went to film school, worked at a video store, and that was his film school.
yeah.
So, get creative, experiment. And I would say, honestly, most importantly, have fun with it. You're not going to want to do it if it's like, torture. You're just not going to want to do it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I'm glad you mentioned Tarantino, such a mainstream director now. I mean, he did used to be very stylistic back in the day, but as he garnered all this attention and fame, I think we can call him mainstream now.
Oh yeah.
So bearing that in mind,
Mhm.
do you think that in the long game of creating a novel and writing a book and just being a writer, I mean, seriously, truly writing seriously.
Yeah.
Do you think that writers should be mindful of current book trends? TikTok.
On-
Tell me
on-
all about book talk. I want to hear
Only
about
to the extent that
that.
it isn't distracting you.
Okay.
At any point, if it's distracting you, and a full disclosure, like I was playing on TikTok this week. I was like, "Ooh, I should get on there. I should go get more active. I should do these things and
Yes.
sell some more books. Doggone
Yeah.
it! Why am I not pushing more videos on TikTok and all these things?" If you're trading like creative time for social time or research time or promotion time, it's probably not the right mix. I think that you got to find that mix that works for you.
Mhm.
Mindful of current book trends, I would question, be like, there's a big push now towards audiobooks.
Mm.
And several people have asked me, like, well,
Yeah.
why isn't your novel have an audiobook? And I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
well, I honestly, I don't want to go hire voice actors, who's part of my answer. I was like, I don't want to have several voice actors and, the ROI on this kind of thing. It becomes a question.
Right.
But I think it's good to stay current, but don't fixate, don't get distracted. Keep those blinders up because you have to be your number one fan of your writing, and you have to
Mhm.
really, put your very best effort in. It's really
Mhm.
hard to put your best effort in if you're like, ooh, I just got a message on Instagram or a like on Instagram. You're probably not going to get a bunch of validation with your
Mhm.
writing,
Mhm.
especially as you're writing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's easy to distract ourselves and be like, ooh, I'm going to go to Twitter. Ooh, I got a retweet. Yay. And it's easy to track a lot of things that don't really matter and can just distract you from the big goal, from that long game.
So Zara and I actually have a couple of
Yeah,
fun
please.
questions for you
Of
guys,
course.
for you. But one question that automatically came to mind because we talked about book talk and sort of playing around in the sand of that,
Mhm.
something that we've been noticing as fellow writers is that increasingly the language around books seems to be in like fixating on a book being the sum of parts, like
Mhm.
trope culture or
Mhm.
like the incorporation of certain types of characters.
Mhm.
And I guess I was just curious for you, like you as a novelist, you as just a writer in general, like do you think about, oh, these are the specific things that I know that readers would want to see in my work? Or is it more about just telling a story?
With nonfiction, I'm paying attention to trends. I'm paying attention to conversations. I'm currently working on a book on rest and overwhelm because I'm like everybody I know, myself included. Like that's why it's been a hard book to write. It's like we're overwhelmed, we're burnt out, we're pushing the limits. With fiction, lean on the genres. Just don't. I would really highly recommend don't like mesh genres together unless in your heart you're like I can't not mesh genres together. But writing especially in fiction, it's hard enough. I would just, focus on on the genres you're drawn toward, and just, stay in your wheelhouse to an extent. And sure, you can spice things up. You can add in a little here and there, but a crime genre like mystery, you know what you're going to get, or
Mhm.
a Western or a romantic novel. I mean, you know what you're going to get. And don't, just because you heard something was catchy, or as we're approaching even the holidays, don't write a Christmas novel just because it's the time of year, unless you're like, I can't not write this. I'd write this in July.
Unless you're Hallmark, then you
Yeah,
should
right.
definitely do that.
Year-round Christmas.
Year-round Christmas. No, I love that. But I'm really curious about hearing your perspective, sort of from the other end of the spectrum. So you mentioned that you shouldn't really pay attention to being validated too much, because you probably won't get that much validation. Well,
Mhm.
let's say you do. What if you
Mhm.
do, and then that starts to shape your perspective on where the story should go, because you start like people pleasing. Like, how
Yeah.
does a writer navigate that?
Yeah, that's a challenge. As I'm working on my second novel, I'm like, you start talking to people that read your book, and you're like, "Ooh, what happened here? I like this. What happened
Beta
here?"
reader.
Yeah, yeah, and
Beta
I'm
reader feedback. Beta reader doom, we call it.
right, and it's almost like, because you're having those conversations, you can give them a lot more weight
Yeah.
in your, more headspace.
Mm.
And I would just try to, detach as much as possible. Again, you still have to be the number one fan of your work,
Right.
not writing just to please that one beta reader. I think that's really dangerous. I mean, if you see a trend where everybody and their uncle and their mother and their brother is like, "Ooh, yeah, this." I mean, consider it, but I'm not saying you should do it.
Mm.
So,
Because they're not writers mainly.
I mean, we can learn a lot from readers for sure, but
Yeah.
again, too, you got to think that long game. And that's I've been thinking a lot about this, the long game. And you know, if you're gonna write books, plural, start thinking more, oh, this is about having some series, having world building, not
Mhm.
just like one-off books. And I'm not knocking those, because I literally had a conversation the other day. I was like, it would kind of be nice. It'd be kind of like a vacation to have just a one-off where,
Mhm.
anything could happen. Like
Mhm.
that kind of excites me a little. But then what about all the characters? I would kind of miss them. I'm a little sentimental that way. I'd be like, I wrote this great character. I know I'm going to want to bring him back. I'm not going to just, you know, push him off.
Right.
You don't want to let go.
You don't want to
Yeah.
let go. You want them to have a more evolved aspect of their journey.
It's
Yeah.
like when you watch a movie or a show or read a book, and you're like, "Ooh, what happens next?" And
Yeah. Absolutely. Like that. And we want, as in when it comes to engaging with our readers, for them to have the same long-term investment that we also have. And speaking of that engagement, that's what we call a segue.
that's
Where
impressive.
do you enjoy
That's
engaging?
how you pivot.
That's impressive.
Yeah, where do you enjoy engaging with, I guess, the writing
Yeah.
community, like fellow
Yeah.
writers, but also like with your readers as well as you
Yeah.
go through your writing journey? Like, what are the ways you do enjoy engagement?
I'm always a one-on-one fan. Like this is why I've done a podcast, and it's like having these chats is so amazing. And when you call your show is coffee chat, and like literally gather around, I'm like, that's like the most fun thing ever to do.
Which is really strange, because you have a pretty substantial following on Medium. So I'm like, from someone like you, I'd be expecting the opposite, which is like good.
No,
I mean, it's interesting for sure, and
I
it's
appreciate that,
endearing.
but
It's very endearing.
I always, because I think you can get lost in the numbers, and you
Mm.
can lose the relationships.
Oh yeah.
Just personal side note, I even push against email a little bit, like the big group email to everybody.
The
I'm more
blast.
that
Email
one-on-one
blast.
communication, Facebook Messenger, text, more one-on-one. It's more real. It's more authentic. I try to do that. I am in a writing group called the Daily Writer Club, where
Mhm.
they meet once a week, and we'll just have a topic. My friend Kent Sanders runs that, and it's a great way just to connect with other writers. It's
Is
mostly
it an online group? Can
Yeah,
people
it's
join?
online. It's
Okay, perfect.
the Daily Writer Club.
Daily Writer Club. All right,
Uh-huh.
Tara will drop that for
Thank
our
you.
people in the chat.
I and also my other real, talk to people in real life, even if they're not writers. Uh, Talking to readers is great too. Just talking to people that are passionate about story. And I mean, even if they're just passionate about TV shows, you can pick up so much.
It's
You can
still a
just
form of art, and I
oh,
agree. I don't think there's anything more cringe than getting an automated message where you can tell that
you
it's
know what
not.
I'm saying,
Oh
Sarah? You
yeah.
got me.
It's
Especially if you
so
don't know if it's just
cringy.
to you. Is it just to me or is it to a bunch? And
And when you can tell that it's not only to you, it's even worse. It makes you feel what's the word I'm
like
looking
this.
for? Like, yeah, I'm like,
You're
oh
so
my
like,
god, that's horrible. Yeah, but all right, let's stay on this topic of the external influences. So why do you think it's important for authors to pursue external accountability, if at all?
Oh my gosh, it's so crucial. And I personally, I'm in this boat right now, revising my novel. And it's like we're already in our heads a lot as writers. We
Oh
have
yeah.
fear, doubt, uncertainty, FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, and not to mention
Continue.
a whole lot.
Anxiety, depression.
Yeah, all those two. Those are the external, you know.
Go on.
And then you fight it with coffee, right?
Yeah.
And then it makes the anxiety worse. But I would say the biggest thing is like you need to voice your struggles. You need to talk with, I don't care if it's a coach, a therapist, other writers. Frankly, I have like, give me the list, give me them all the things there.
Yeah.
Because it's just so easy to spend your time overthinking things and, having internal conversations and, how could I tweak this scene? Should I include this topic?
Yeah.
And that external accountability, it's like having, a guardrail on the road.
Mhm.
So you're not, so you have like that boundary in place where it's so helpful. Like I'm meeting with
Right.
one of my writing friends tonight, and I'm thrilled because I'm like, I fell a little bit short on my goal, but I could easily beat myself up, frankly,
Right.
easily. But the
I
good news is
Mhm.
I'm like I was really close,
Mhm.
and that's important.
Right. Well, I do have a follow-up question, and I guess do you think that it's more helpful to search for external accountability like in a professional circle rather than you know what I mean? Like, is the first person you go to a professional writer or is it your therapist? That's what I'm asking basically. Where do you go for that external
That's a great question.
accountability?
Uh it depends if you're focused on writing or you as a whole person.
Mhm.
Um I think that's the big question. If you're focused only on the writing, get a writing coach. That's fine. If you're talking about life in general, discussing your, stresses with your spouse or your kids or your
Which
job or
affects your
life in
writing
general,
probably.
that's not really writing
Mhm.
topic. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, you can bake a whole lot of that right in there, and especially with fiction, you can get away with murder, literally and figuratively, in your books. Um, you know, because you can be like, "Ooh, had that fight with my partner, and I'm gonna use a little bit of that later." And ha ha ha, that was really good. Or my kids, but it's probably not going to be the right fit. And frankly, it's too heavy. And as a writing coach, I've had clients like that before where they come at me and I'm like, not a therapist, truly want to help you, truly want what's best for you, but I'm not prepared. Like, can we get back to the page? Because I I can sit here and nod my head. That's pretty much the only thing I can comfortably do. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of other writers would have that response.
Right. Absolutely. I think another quick question I have about external accountability, and it's interesting because to your point, like in seeking that external accountability, you want to be mindful of who can help you with what and when.
Mhm.
Particularly when it comes to the writing coach relationship,
Mhm.
something I've always been intrigued by, or just so whenever somebody receives feedback on their work, sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not, like, for example,
Mhm.
grammar. Grammar, you can tell when somebody's grammar is off because there's a relatively fixed standard,
Sure.
unless there's like a very intentional stylistic reason for why the grammar is
Yeah.
wrong, right?
Right.
But there are other times when you get someone's feedback and it's hard to tell whether or not they're just shaping your style into something
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
would prefer to read. So like
That's
how do you
dangerous.
navigate that as a
Yeah.
writer and as a
Yeah.
writer?
Because you're gonna lose your voice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've that's happened to me several times. And oh my gosh, that's so upsetting. When you read it and you're like, I don't even, did I write
And
this?
it's
It sure doesn't
detrimental
look
to
like
your
me.
work, right?
Yeah. Uh, I really wish I had an amazing answer for you here, but frankly, part of this is learning the hard way. And it's not, there's no one blanket answer I could give you that would really fit these situations.
Mm-hmm.
You, as a writer, as a creator, need to really learn to trust your gut feeling. Some people might even say trust your heart. You know, whichever way you want to lean on it, it's all good. I knew. I'm gonna give a quick example. I knew my novel wasn't ready after I went it through one editor, and I was like, in my heart, I know it still needs more work. I could just sense it. It was like
Mm-hmm.
an itch that you couldn't scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm getting another editor. And that's kind of humbling and a little frustrating. And you're like, you're antsy, you're like, ooh, I'm ready to get this thing out in the world. I don't want to, keep it and go through more revisions and all this. But I knew in my heart, I just, if I put it out, I was already disappointed from the word go.
Mm-hmm.
It was that strong of a sense in my gut. And I was like, okay, let's just, again, try things, experiment, send an email. Being vulnerable is our bread and butter as
Mm-hmm.
writers. We have to embrace that fear of like being rejected, being hurt. It's part of the creative process. It just is. I wish there was a nicer, you know, more uplifting way to put it. But when you're revealing so much truth and just being your honest self, it kind of comes with the territory. It's almost like dating. If you're dating people and not giving 100% and you're just like, I'm gonna give half my personality and just show them half, it's the relationship's not going to work over the long
It's
term.
fake, is what it is.
Exactly. It's not authentic, it's fake. And I think readers sense that. I think they
Oh yeah,
smell
people
it
can smell
far
crap
away.
from a mile away for sure. I don't think that people give themselves enough credit for their instinct and their gut feeling, and especially writers. And I always tell people, that people can tell when you're lying, right? Like it just shines through if you're
It
not.
does.
Yeah.
Anything that sounds too pretty or,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, I can't help but think about how, and maybe I'm just cynical, which is weird because I wouldn't necessarily associate myself with being a very cynical person, but
Yeah.
a
You're
lot
not,
of
I can
things,
confirm.
but a lot of books, not in general, but I think a lot of the books that are like really, really popular, and maybe it's just because of how they're marketed, but
Yeah.
they're framed as like, here are all of these things that you all like, and they're in this book. So like the book itself wasn't constructed as a story, but as like
Right.
a dopamine device. And it's just
Right. Oh my
weird.
gosh.
Yeah,
It's like it's weird. I'm
that's
like,
so true.
like, am I supposed to like this? Like, like you
I
understand
think
like what
that's
they meant, but
Yeah, I
still.
totally get what you're saying. I think that's the nonfiction problem, and I think that's some people will almost grab bag it, where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna give you everything to make your life happy. Here you go.
Like a goodie bag, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like trick or treat, right? You get all the candy.
Yeah.
Here you go. And I think that right there is, yeah, you could do it, and you could do it well, but boy, if you're not totally honest.
Mhm.
And I would question is someone who's really, really honest, are they going to make that book? You could do it, but it probably would be almost counter from the how to make your life great, to be really fully honest.
Yeah, but I think Kara makes a good point about the way marketing, the role that marketing plays in book selling, because the way it's positioned, it's almost as important, if not more, in the digital era as the actual book.
The
The
cover, the
the
title, the
cover, the
hook. Yeah.
title, the bloggers that review it. I mean, famously, Colleen Hoover shot to the top of the to the top of the mountain when oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Maurice Brown, I think, is the famous blogger who reviewed her book, and she gave it 5 stars. And that's when the sales just skyrocketed for her. So that's it. You know, like the popularity of the marketplace where they market and the people who market the book plays a huge role in what sells, I think. And unfortunately, it like I think that writers should not feel less than because that happens.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the budgets.
Yeah.
Think about those connections and that influence, and that's huge. And it could, quickly become a select group of people that just keep lifting each other's stuff up. Is it actually any good? Would be the hard question I would ask.
Debatable. When I don't want to upset anybody, when I'm trying to be diplomatic, my answer is that's debatable. But it's me saying,
well, you know what? I should backtrack a little and just say, you know what? It might be great to someone who really wants to read that, to that one ideal
oh my
reader.
God, that's so passive aggressive. I love it. That's low-key so passive aggressive. No, but that's good. I mean,
well, I'm just being honest.
way.
Like I have friends that have loved
it's
certain
sad.
books, and I read it and I'm like, what was this? And I'm just like, hey,
And
you
what
know
do you
what?
say
You
to
got something
that?
out of it. Good for you. And I kind of have that same approach with movies, where like my daughter even loves one of the Star Wars movies, and I would rather, do anything but watch it. And I'm just like, you know what? Good for you. I'm glad you like it. I'm just gonna not enjoy that and go do something else.
Taste plays a huge role.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
1000%.
Exactly.
One last thing I quickly want to say on this topic is I don't like, this is not to throw Netflix as a production company under the bus, but like I feel like for some of these things, it's not just Netflix, but other entities too. Like we're in an era where rom-coms are bad on purpose. Like the whole premise is that they're absolutely like ridiculous. The plots don't make sense, and you enjoy it because it's
Yeah.
Right.
Like, like
which is so strange because that genre was like on top of the game at the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, one of the most iconic films, Mean Girls and all that stuff, which are genuinely like good movies, like, but rom-com was like on top of the game. But like you could really tell while watching those movies that, oh yeah, this is on a technical level, a good movie.
Yeah.
And now I think what Kyra's trying to say is that they're selling us garbage.
I question the whole shift because it's easy to focus on spectacle versus story. And if a show, you can't really do this so much with a book because a book is just text and you're creating it all. But with a movie or a show where it's all, visuals and sounds and, the acting performance and all that, you can literally kind of, make that spectacle where it's more about, shock value or funny or like one odd scene after another where you're kind of cringing. You ever watch something where you're just like cringing? Like I personally get like a little physically, like I'm like, I have to push pause because this is so cringy. I'm like,
yeah, it's true. Yes. But I would like to give the audiences a little bit of credit, and I say this all the time. Probably the biggest example of what you're saying is the Game of Thrones, right? That show dropped the ball, right?
But then again, everyone called them out.
Right, but like people acknowledged it that this is, listen, great acting, great visuals, great everything, but the story, the writing was bad, and everybody was mad, which only makes you think that, so many shows get on just on their charisma because that carries the show and their writing, and that's enough.
Right.
So like I think that's a good thing, you know what I mean, that that people call them out, that this is a great movie because it wasn't even on a level of a TV show. And I mean, it was literally like a movie production.
Yeah. Oh,
and
it's crazy.
Everybody was mad because the writing was bad, so good for us.
Yeah. Well, I have only seen a little, but I know the whole thing and I know the whole problem, and it's so common. And if the original writer hasn't gotten that far, it seems to be like, well, almost they either could have not made it at all, but
Mm,
would they do that when there's that much money on the line,
no,
right?
that plays a
Right.
part for sure.
Yeah, and here's just hoping that our audiences will be like, as we become like world continue to become world renowned storytellers, that our audiences will hold us accountable to good storytelling, because it's like the notion of a spectacle, and like it seems like industries are like craving that. And if
Mm-hmm.
we fall into that trap, then like maybe we would attract an initial audience, but then when they're like, when they see through the mirage, you're like, oh wait, there's no story here. Like
Yeah,
we have to
there's
be like,
nothing
as
here.
writers, have to like actually tell stories that people can be invested in and not see through the smoke and mirrors, you know?
Yeah, and I think it also boils down to the writing. We have to be so honest. And one thing I always will respect Jerry Seinfeld for, it was like, hey, look, we're on top. We're stepping away.
Hmm.
And Calvin and Hobbes, the author Bill Watterson, did the same thing. And it's like you can keep it going. You can keep, keep creating
You
more and
should
more.
know when to quit, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's brave and it's
Mm.
scary, and a lot of numbers are attached to that, and
But
it's
your
like,
legacy remains intact, which
yeah,
ultimately is the only thing that remains here after you're gone. Like your
you
money
know,
will be gone, everything will be gone, but your legacy will stay. And if you compare it, like compare the legacy of Game of Thrones with the legacy of Jerry Seinfeld, no one will accuse him of being cheap now.
right?
So, I think that's something to consider. Not, I mean, and that's not to say that we don't love money, because that would be hypocritical. We love money around here. Okay, everybody loves money. Let's just be let's just be very honest. But, you know,
I
yeah,
I think there's something to be said there, and I think that for the New York Times best-selling writers,
yeah,
there's so many things they keep doing, that so many writers, like, we can implement all of these things now. We might
yeah.
not be able to do it on the scale of somebody that has that budget to have like their own staff or something like that, but
Hmm.
we can always reach out for help. We can always connect with other writers and ask them questions and say, hey, what's the best book promotion service? What have you done? What's worked well? That kind of thing. um Helping each other out, because we're not in competition with each other,
Hmm.
because we're learning from each other and
And
growing, and it's like
there's
the more
enough
people
space for
reading.
everybody to thrive. I think
Yeah,
we are divided into genres. Like we're fine. You know what I mean? But I
right.
was going to ask you, like, to the best of your knowledge, is the New York Times bestselling author
Mhm,
that whole thing?
mhm.
Is it like an exclusive club? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, are there people that will not be able to join regardless of what they do?
Yes, because of what you're doing topic wise.
Hmm.
uh I would say it's one of those constantly changing things. It's like the Google algorithm, it's like, what are
Okay.
they doing now? I'm not sure.
Hmm.
It is always changing, and it's like a magical science kind of thing. It's amazing how they'll count a physical book copy in a
Yeah.
store in like Denver, Colorado,
Yeah.
more than they'll count like ebook sales on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that blows my mind a little. I was like, yeah, what's up with that? And I think that's why I mentioned, even like in the original post, I was like, maybe we can learn from these bestsellers, but maybe just being a New York Times bestseller is not even necessarily the right goal, because it's like a moving target. And
Right.
I mean, it's more that, hey, I get that stamp of approval, and then I get that acceptance because it was a New York Times bestseller. It's it's really that word of mouth that keeps things going, and
Yeah.
having those satisfied readers is such
Yeah.
a huge part of it.
I would agree. I think that the word of mouth is still the most efficient marketing technique out there. And yeah, maybe New York Times bestselling list will, I mean, sometime in the future, they will get the same treatment as the Oscars. You know what I mean? Like, just people won't be into that anymore, like into that level of elitism. Because I think that the public already is shifting heavily away from anything elitist. I think that public
Sure.
is kind of turning on, those old school lists and just a traditional way of publishing in general, and basically anything that excludes someone because reasons, because discrimination, because whatever you want to
Right.
call
Well,
it.
I mean, I think most people don't, yeah, they don't want to see that kind of exclusion or, any elitism. It's like I think we all just are really desperately wanting some, adventure, some good stories, and
Yeah,
to see more kindness, more empathy is what
yeah,
we're all kind of really craving.
yeah,
And then it's it all comes down to great stories.
Right.
That's the key.
yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more important than the story.
I agree for
Absolutely.
sure.
I mean, and kind of this question actually kind of bridges off of a conversation we had about like reputation and legacy,
Hmm.
particularly. It also builds off of our earlier discussion about an author honoring their approach.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So, what are some ways that authors can reinvent themselves and like
Right.
keep things spicy or whatever, while
Right.
still staying true
Right.
to like who they are and their approach?
You know, I think you should take inventory on what it is you like to do.
Hmm.
That's huge. It's so easy to not like take inventory. Like I
Hmm.
love to play guitar. I love movies and I love books and I'm pretty simple guy. I love going to the bookstore. Okay, well, all right. Well, huh. I know this is weird, but what if I were to write a song about a story and play it on the guitar? Oh, that's kind of weird. Oh, I don't know if that's the greatest fit because I'm pretty introverted, but oh shoot, somebody else was singing, maybe I'd play guitar. Okay. Like just experimenting and trying different things. And like even for me initially, the video stuff was like most writers are just like, no video. No, no, no. I
Yeah,
don't want to do social media. I don't want to do any video. I don't want to do a podcast. I don't, it's like, I just want to write. Leave me alone. I've heard that from some writers and
me
I get
too.
it and I respect it.
Hmm.
But what if it's just a way to reinvent yourself is to talk a little bit, record it on your phone?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
literally
mean,
how
anytime you make a decision to close yourself off from something, I don't think that that's the best approach. Like even when you make a mistake or when
Mhm.
you get yourself potentially in a situation that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's still an experience that you can pull from and write about. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
especially as writers, I feel like we should, not only we should, but like we are experts and should be experts in everything, since we tell people stories, so we should know everything about everything to make it as authentic as possible. And when you close yourself to experiences, like what if one day you come up with a great story
Mhm.
about a social media influencer who fell from grace, but how do you write about that if you close yourself off to social media?
Right.
So like I definitely agree that you should like respect some boundaries, your boundaries especially, but you know what I mean, I think that pushing yourself out of your comfort zone should be a part of the equation as well. Would you agree?
Totally. I think that anytime you're like really comfortable, it's it's
It's a
hard.
bad sign. It's a bad sign.
It
Like
is. You're living in that status
oh no,
quo, right?
I'm so comfortable. I don't think this is good.
It's like it's almost like I'm in cruise control and I'm not really thinking and I'm just kind of
Autopilot.
drifting along.
Right.
Going through the motions, right? You
A
feel like you're
thousand
on autopilot.
percent.
You feel like you know what it feels like? It feels like you're not alive anymore. Like
Been
there's
there.
something,
Been
it feels like someone else is piloting this, and
Yeah.
it's not good. I don't think it's
Right.
good.
Right,
Right.
right.
And
And it's hard because it's almost like we don't like change instinctively. I mean, why would you want to why would you want to mess everything up when everything's just right?
I'm the
It's
exception. I do like change, but yes,
you
generally,
do
I
like change,
think
man.
people don't like
You're
change.
amazingly unique and I like that. But
woo,
I sure like I don't like change too, most times. I think too though, it's you know, I think a lot of it's just being so honest, being really honest and trying things, experimenting. Uh
Right.
never never stop learning, never stop experimenting.
Mm.
even if it's like I signed up for this Citizens Police Academy. And
Ooh.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? And I was like, oh, well, I want to learn more from my novels. Duh, okay. But I went and I felt like I was this little kid in school and all these people are there. And I'm like, this is weird because I have a former government background and it felt really weird going back to like in a,
Establishment.
yeah, and it almost felt backwards because I was like, I
Yeah.
left government background to go become a writer. And
Yeah.
now here I am going back again, but
Yeah.
to learn in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to not want to open yourself up to experiences that you don't know what's going to be like the
Mhm.
future. It might be a good experience, might be a bad, it might be anywhere in
Right.
between.
Mm,
And
It's the thrill of not knowing for me, and that's why I love
right.
change.
that's
Like
interesting.
it gives me like it raises my adrenaline. The adrenaline in my blood is like, it's almost like a drug. So, and when I don't feel that,
Wow.
when I feel comfortable, as we mentioned, I start to become unhappy. So that's what I know. Oh,
Mm.
I need to change. I need to change.
Almost like that helps drive you a little more there too.
Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. That
good.
helps my drive for sure.
That's
Well, and I
good.
love the Police Academy movies, so old
It
school.
wasn't
Oldie
like
but
that
goodie.
exactly, but it was I went to that and it was like all about like the canine unit and they had a demo and then next week it's another department and all this. And I'm like, this is
Ooh.
so different.
Different.
Yeah, I did have a great time. I'm not like this. I was like, well, I don't know how much I'm going to learn that I can use, and I'm like, I had pages of notes, and it's just like, even if I don't get something directly from the class, like from the teacher, what about that conversation between the students?
Yeah, you can find new friends for sure.
Crosstalk,
Exactly.
we're detectives, is what we all really are.
Yeah.
We're
No,
looking for more
1000%.
story, more story fodder.
Absolutely. I mean, something that one of the words that you're using that is particularly, and you use it inside of your article as well, that's particularly resonating with me is experiment. Because at the end of the day, like to what Zara was saying, like closing yourself off from experiences isn't going to serve you because you could start something. The worst thing that could happen is that, like, assuming that you actually do the thing, is that you realize you don't like it. But at least now you know that about yourself. You
Yeah.
could just stop. But whereas
And you
before, you
can
have
write
no
about
idea
how
whether or
you
not you're
don't
going to
like
like it.
it. I don't think that's anything more satisfying than talking crap about anything in life. It's so fun.
I'm crying. I mean, like, for example, something that happened to me relatively recently, I guess relatively being more like a year and a half or so ago, but
Mhm.
I am not like, it's not so far as to say that I'm not a video person. I enjoy video. It was
Mhm.
more like reels and
Of course.
TikToks, like
Yeah,
that whole format. I was like,
sure.
I'm not going to do this. Like, this is silly, which is, again, very ironic because I identify as a very silly person. Now that I like got out of my comfort zone of like trying that format,
Right.
I just think they're fun. It's like an
Yeah.
area of levity for me, but I wouldn't
Right.
have done that if I didn't have my initial doubts about the whole thing. But if I didn't like it, I could have just stopped.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. And I think too, finding right on topic here, reinventing yourselves while staying true. Like when you're doing that, you're looking at different reels, seeing different approaches. One of my clients I was working with, he would just take clips from his keynote speeches. Boom, right there. Just a little 30-second one. Boom, right there.
Put it
That's
on
that's
TikTok.
it. And of course, I had to go through and I'm a writer. I'm not a video editor. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
But I went through and I said, okay, I need a beginning, a middle, and an end. The end is the punchline. I
Hmm.
need to make sure I include the whole mini story, MINI, in that. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's stories all over if you just kind of experiment with it and try
Yeah.
and just finding something that really resonates with you will help you figure out your own approach.
You know what? That's actually a really good segue into our final question, which is now let's get logistical. So,
Mhm.
like, what do you recommend for actual resources and building a writing process, writing identity, all of that jazz? Like, let's give people something tangible.
All right, resources for building a writing process and identity.
Yes. What do you do? Where do you go?
You know, all right, what are your goals? Got to start with your goal.
Okay.
Maybe it's writing a book, maybe it's being a pro writer, maybe it's somewhere in that realm. Okay, if it's writing a book, Go find 5 books that are the same genre, the same idea, something that you love. That's your
Inspire yourself,
start
basically.
there.
Okay.
Start there, because that your answers are probably all right there in those 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to be a pro writer, you want to do it full time, okay. Who do you know where you can get more experience? Yes, you can do the Medium, you can do the blog, but working directly with a client is like the fast track.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you know somebody who just struggles with, sending emails. We were just talking about email earlier. It's like, well, shoot, you could just help somebody with their emails and, write their newsletter for them. That right there, maybe you don't like it. And that's cool, but you're experimenting, you're narrowing it down. You're getting paid to practice is
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing in that case. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would do. Like literally, like, okay, maybe it's
To
maybe
like become a freelancer, maybe sign up for a freelancing
that's going to be the
website.
best way, because then you can dabble versus going all in.
Yeah.
And you can you could I mean, you could
Test the
totally
water.
just reach out to your network. And if
Mm.
you don't have I don't have a network. When I say network,
Everybody knows somebody.
I know, but I'm saying even the word network can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it is
Talk to your
overwhelming.
peeps,
Your
talk
I,
to
I
your
always say
friends.
your social circle. Start with
Yeah,
your social circle. Everybody has a social circle, even if it's your
exactly.
mom. I bet you
Exactly.
that your mom has her work circle and that
Yep.
work circle has their own work circle. You know what I mean?
And I would even post on Facebook,
Yeah.
because LinkedIn, I've never had really good experiences personally on
LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
is the new Facebook.
It's for adults, but who wants to be an adult? It's overrated. Go to Facebook, go to
Truly.
Twitter, and
It's so
just
annoying.
post, "Hey, I'm starting my freelancing." And if you're a little intimidated by just doing the post, send some direct messages. Talk to people that talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm.
So I think I would either get the 5 books, kind of narrow down the genre, or
Mm-hmm.
I would say, "Hey, get a freelance gig and just experiment there."
Yeah. You know
And
what? I would definitely agree with you, especially with the experiment and the freelancing, because the first thing anybody's going to ask you for when you're an artist of any kind is your portfolio. Can you show me your portfolio? What
exactly.
you've painted,
Exactly.
what you have written, you know what I mean? So like I think the first step is definitely like inspire yourself, work on your portfolio so that you have something to show
Yeah,
to people.
absolutely. And that's honestly how I treat Medium. That's where I do love Medium,
Your
because
portfolio, yeah,
it's
exactly.
like $5 a month. You can go crazy on Medium.
Yeah.
You can do the whole WordPress, get your own site, all that, but you're making it a lot harder than you need it to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially starting out. And honestly, even now, 8 years in, I'm like, I still enjoy Medium way more than doing the traditional blog stuff, because
It's
I
a
can,
old school, the traditional block stuff. It doesn't work anymore. I think, my personal opinion as a marketer, in this era, it just doesn't work anymore.
unless you're nailing it on that SEO and
Unless
like,
you're nailing on the SEO, or you have
right,
established platform like
right,
on
right,
YouTube, like PewDiePie and all these people who have millions and
right.
millions of followers because they started way back when no one was on YouTube, so they got a lot of viewership from being the pioneers as
Correct. I
creators, you
completely
know?
agree. I think being an early adopter is huge. I think there's a lot of intangibles as well. It's like you're
Mhm.
talking about this topic at
Yeah,
this time and you have this personality.
subcategories.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like but and also just repurpose your stuff. Like, don't hesitate to repurpose, because if someone hasn't read your stuff on Medium, you could post it straight up on Facebook. Post it, there's so many places to share your work. So
Yeah, like
don't
repurposing the content.
1,000%.
all
Mhm.
over, like turning podcasts into blog posts, turning a blog post into a podcast.
That's what we're doing with coffee chats, aren't we, Kyra? Like we
Yes,
are
we
repurposing
You
it
know,
are.
as
turning a book
podcast.
into a course, turning a course into a book.
Yeah,
It's all in how you want to, use it as
being
an end
creative,
user.
right? Like be
Absolutely.
creative with the work and experiment for sure.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, first and foremost, you're awesome.
Oh,
an
thank
incredible
you. You're so
guest.
kind.
But
We love your writing.
yeah,
Aw.
absolutely. And
I'm just gonna record this to replay it to myself later.
but
No, thank
do
you.
you have any parting words for our, our burgeoning audience out there who wants to glean from your wisdom?
I'm thinking because I always like to talk about what's happening currently, like right now, because it's so fresh and real.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Mhm.
Don't give up because all too often you're like right on the edge of a breakthrough
Mhm.
when you're like
Oh,
feeling like,
like
oh
the
my
meme
god.
reaching the diamonds, like as you're, you know which meme I mean, which one I mean.
I'm not sure because there's a lot of memes out there.
The one where basically like there's this cartoon where a person is mining and there's
Okay.
just not
Oh, and it's right there. Like
it's
just
right
one
there,
swipe
and
away.
right before they reach the mine, like the diamonds, they
Yeah.
just turn around
Yeah. I
and
think that's it. Yeah, and I see it's so easy to unless you're getting some external validation, it's so easy to be like you're your own harshest critic. So you have to kind of factor that in a little and say,
yeah, for sure.
I don't like this. Well, instead of always like having that more cynical approach on it, be like, flip it. What do I like about this?
Mm-hmm.
As I'm like editing my second novel, it's like, well, shoot, I can play the negative mindset or the positive, and it's like the positive is what's going to get me to the finish line.
Yeah, which one is more productive,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah, and that's why I'm saying like don't give up because it's so easy to be like, ooh, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not making progress. Don't believe that. Don't believe I should quit, I should go do something else, or my writing is not good enough or whatever. You
Right.
might just be like, one phone call away from getting an amazing insight or, meeting that editor or that writing coach who can really help you, you know, start
Right.
reaching your goals.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you
It was an
bet.
absolute privilege to have you.
Thank
Have,
you.
have a wonderful rest of your day.
You
Thank you
too.
so
Thanks
much,
so much. I
Sid.
look forward to watching more episodes because this is so much fun.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Thank
spread the
you.
word
I
about
will.
coffee chats.
Fantastic.
Thank you
And
so much, Jim.
You bet. Thanks so
you.
much. Appreciate you both. Take care.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Yeah, bye.
So that was awesome. I learned so
Awesome.
much, and it was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much again, Zara, for co-hosting. Like this was a party, and our personality just meshed so well. And
Yeah, I mean it's well known that whenever I enter, it's a party.
it truly, I
I'm
mean,
just
no
kidding.
lies
You are
detected.
awesome.
Fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed people of the audience, Zara and I, even though we live in very different parts of the country, we have spent time together in person before, and it was a party. So just know that wherever we go,
It was a rave.
we bring in the party. So if you guys, thank you so much again for joining us in the coffee chat space. And if there's anything that you want to see on this very fun and burgeoning platform, do not hesitate to suggest a topic in the comments below. We do read them. We do take your feedback and your
We
input.
do.
So please bear that in mind. And if you want to reach out to us, so that's my social Instagram handle and Mackenzie's Instagram handle. Zara, would you like to share yours just to say aloud?
Yes, it's at Zara Miller author. That's my Instagram, and Zara Miller on LinkedIn. So yes, you can reach out anytime. I love to chat and I love to socialize.
Yay! So thank you all so much for joining us. And again, we're so grateful for each and every one of you. And, we're more than happy to have you guys in this coffee chat space. And don't forget to bring your beverage of choice next time we get together. Bye, everyone.